We hear all these different healing peptides that are out there on the market now, but which is the most potent one, or should you take them all together? I'm going to tell you that in a minute.
I created Species Nutrition with one mission in mind: to provide bodybuilders and serious athletes with no-nonsense supplements that work. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution.
RX Television, RXMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, your weekly 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. Bodybuilding, non-bodybuilding. Obviously, we are just coming off the Arnold Classic. So what does that mean? That means that you are either groggy, tired, sick, or some combination of the above. But this is your forum to answer whatever questions you have on your mind, be it for bodybuilding, non-bodybuilding, diet, training, supplementation, and obviously what just unfolded this past weekend at the Arnold Classic. We're going to go right into the first two questions from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. When you finish a cycle taking 1,000 or 1,500 mg of test, you go straight into PCT, but wouldn't it be better to lower the dose by 1,500 to 50 mg to avoid a hormonal imbalance?
You know, it logically would seem like that's the right answer, to taper off. And I used to do that. And then I realized these drugs are long-acting drugs. They're in your system for 3 weeks. So there's a natural taper. So even though you take your last shot today, you're going to still have all this drug in you for 3 more weeks, especially if you're using other long-actings with the testosterone. Let's say you're using testananthate and you're doing EQ or testananthate and like DECA. They're very long metabolites, and they still have potency in the body. So they're kind of doing this. Here's your levels up here, and then they start just doing this gradually. So whether you go from 4 shots a week of test to 2 to 1, it doesn't matter because you're tapering down anyway, and then you're adding the PCT in while your body is coming down off these drugs that are still in your system, and you're turning back on the testicles, you're turning back on the pituitary gland, hypothalamus you're blocking the estrogen receptors in there by using Nolvadex or Clomid, and so everything's turning itself back on as your levels are coming down. So that's why it works so well. You don't need to do a taper. Now, I guess if you were on all like orals or like super fast acting compounds and nothing that had any kind of sustainability, which would be silly if you did that. But there are people that do that. You might want to, taper off a little bit. But if you're only doing like Anavar and winstrol because it's your first cycle, or you're a woman, for women, they don't need to taper off, obviously, because there is no crash. But for a man, those drugs don't even really suppress you much. So really, we're talking about the guys that are on big cycles. And if you're taking long-acting testosterone, there's no reason to taper down. You can just stop. Matter of fact, by stopping, you're going to, that's 3 weeks you're going to save that you could have, if you were tapering off, you would have had to, lose on the back end. So the quicker you start your PCT and your off period, that 8-week clean out, the quicker you can go back on. So that's another reason why I like to stop it as well. But yeah, as long as you're on long actings, no problem.
Second question, again, these first two from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. I'm starting Glow peptide for my skin, mix of BPC, TB500, GHKCU. I'm wondering if it's better to just take GHKCU alone. Is it bad to be taking BPC and TB? Should I be saving those only for when I'm injured?
Yeah, the Glow peptide, I guess you could say mixture. I don't know who came up with the name, but everyone seems to now be using it. Like all these peptide websites are using it. It's usually 4 compounds. It's the BPC 157, TB 500, which are your healing peptides. Then you have your copper peptide, which is supposed to be good for reinforcing ligaments, tendons, hair growth. There's a whole bunch of other things it does, but it's based on copper. And then you have your KPV, which is like an anti-inflammatory type of peptide. So they combine these 4 together. And, even if you don't have any injuries or you're trying to heal anything, you could take the Glow combination, because I take it almost like, and I don't just do the Glow. I'll do I like BPC myself separately, but I'll take just the BPC daily, just so I have constant regeneration going on in my body. And I think it's just a low dose daily is better than taking massive dosages, just when you get hurt. That's just my feeling. I always felt that way about growth hormone too, and it worked really well that way for me. I think a lot of guys do massive amounts of GH for short periods, or they don't do it every day of the week, and I don't think they get as good of results. I think the body likes consistency. So you can certainly use the Glow combination daily if you wanted to use it in small dose, like microdosing it, daily, or just you can get pure copper peptide, like you were suggesting. If that's something you're using specifically for something with skin or hair, and that's all you really need, then why spend the money on the other stuff? Just get the copper peptide and take that a couple times a week and see how that works. Really, there's no right or wrong answer. There's no negative to taking the healing peptides other than cost. And if cost doesn't matter to you, then use the Glow.
Before we go to the rest of our questions, our friends at Titan Medical Center, let me just pull up their weekly special. Their therapy of the week is MOTS-C. It's being asked for more and more and pairs really good with Retta. Normally $700 for the month supply. This week, they're discounting it to $500. So this is another one of those very popular ones, Dave, that you get a lot of questions regarding MOTS-C.
I have not used MOTS-C myself, but I do know people that they claim that it works really well. It probably works tremendously well in combination with the retatrutide. As we know, the GLP-1 agonists, and retatrutide is 3 actually. It's a glucagon agonist. It's a GIP, which is an insulin agonist, and then it's also the GLP-1 agonist as well, which mimics the hormone glucagon like peptide 1. Which helps lower blood sugars, limits appetite, and does all that great stuff. So the retatrutide, which seems to be the thing everyone's using now, which is fine, it's the 3-in-1 combination, is probably the most, I guess you could say, potent in terms of weight loss for people, because it controls appetite. And listen, you could take all the fat, you could take all the clenbuterol and T3 you want. If you overeat, right, you're not going to lose weight. I know plenty of people who cheat on their diet and they don't lose anything, and they're on 15,000 different fat burners, and they're doing a lot of cardio too. So the key is not putting that extra food into your mouth. So the retatrutide really helps with that appetite suppression. And then you throw MOTS-C on top of it, which is a metabolic activator. It's going to just kind of boost the effects of the retatrutide a little bit and enhance fat burning. The combination that they put on sale is dramatically reduced in price. So they want people to try it, obviously. And what I always tell people is, it seems as though the MOTS-C component works differently on everyone. So it might work really good on me. It might not work on you, that kind of thing. So here's a good opportunity to give it a shot. The retatrutide is going to work no matter what. I haven't met anyone that is immune to that stuff, because it just knocks out your appetite. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't eat. And I've said this before. As bodybuilders, we know we eat small meals throughout the day, but don't miss meals on the retatrutide, because that's going to cause muscle loss. So the retatrutide plus the MOTS-C on sale at TitanMedicalCenter.com. Head over there. Tell them Dave Palumbo, RXMuscle sent you. You're going to get that awesome discount. It's only for this week only, so check it out.
I know I kind of glossed over it at the very beginning of this show, but this past weekend was the Arnold Classic. And if you go to our channel right now, we have content galore on YouTube, on Instagram. The exclusive interview with Hadi Chupan, obviously our meet and greet interviews. And then throughout the weekend, our prejudging wrap-ups, our final wrap-ups, which included 4-time Mr. Olympia Jay Cutler, 2-time Mr. Olympia Derek Lunsford, the legend himself, Kai Green. And then, of course, we had 2026 Arnold Classic champion Andrew Jack, as well as Wesley Vissers from the night before. So we have the big winner interviews. We have star-studded recaps. It's all on the channel, and very, very, very well received. Big shout out to the Arnold Classic committee, Brian Powers, for really again rolling out the red carpet for us and allowing.
And that big announcement that said that they're going to a 4th day. Don't forget that.
Wild. Well, Dave, you saw what happened on Saturday, right? Obviously with the large crowds. the biggest booth there, Young LA, and I'd say booth. It's not a booth. The Young LA booth is essentially an entire section of the expo. It's exactly, it's a city in and of itself, and it caused a I guess what's the term? Like it basically like
traffic jam,
fire violation of some sort. It's
they had too many people
where,
there. They had too many people.
Right,
there.
exactly. They had to shut the booth down. It was that crowded. So look, obviously now we're post-COVID. If you remember the Arnold Expo pre-COVID and what it used to be, it was essentially back to that this year. Where on Saturday you cannot get through the way you're literally swimming through a sea of human beings.
I have to say something just because I have to do a little rant here. I don't know if I never, well, I can say this with certainty. I never had the patience to be able to wait on a line for more than like 20 minutes. These people at the Young LA booth were waiting for hours and hours and hours on a line. And I don't even, to be honest with you, I don't even know what they were getting on the line. They weren't there to buy something. I don't know if were they giving away something at the booth or just to meet the athletes?
My understanding is that because the way that they structure their, and I mean, I say glorified booth, they have a bunch of different stations with the athletes. And again, we're talking about so many of the influencers that they bring. And I mean, hats off. They attract some of the most popular influencers in the world. So you're going to get the most prodigious lines. So yes, those lines were to meet the influencers.
I never would have waited. I'm not a waiting type of guy. I don't have a lot of patience. So I could never wait. I can't, like, if I have to go to the amusement park, I have to buy the speed pass because I can't wait on the lines at the amusement parks either. So I do take my hat off. The fans were great. They were very patient. I didn't see any fights or arguments. People were sitting in line. They were having fun. They were filming, for their channels and taking pictures for Instagram. And I took a lot of pictures with a lot of fans. And I always tell people, tag me with your pictures so that you can put them, so I can put them up and display them because I love getting pictures taken with you guys as much as you like taking them with me. And you don't have to wait on a line for me. You can just grab me right out of the crowd. But the booths had to have done amazing. And I'm sure the Arnold people were so happy. And it was so successful that they added a fourth day. Now they're going to start the expo on Thursday, which should help with some of the overflow traffic, I think. And if I were you guys watching this and you want to go to a great show and you want to go to the Arnold next year, get to the expo on Thursday. And then if you stay the whole weekend, go on Sunday. Because on Sunday is when people, I don't want to give away the secrets, all the booths, they don't want to go home with the stuff they brought. So whatever's left, they give great deals on it. A lot of times they just give it away. You hang out to the bitter end, I tell people, until they close that expo at 5 o'clock or whatever time they close it. And you'll get the best deals of your life. And those are the best 2 days to go. Saturday's it's insane to go on Saturday because it's too busy. And Friday's not so bad, but Saturday's the worst day to go if you're looking to get stuff, because then you're just going to wait on lines on Saturday.
But again, hats off, Arnold Classic, a successful show, obviously successful expo, and just really, really exciting competitions throughout. And then, of course, over the next few days, we'll surely be breaking down what we saw this past weekend at the Arnold Classic again, which saw Andrew Jack win on Saturday night and really announced himself into that elite title conversation for the Olympians. Continue with the questions. Question about loose skin: how much GH to tighten loose skin?
I don't think there's enough GH in the world to tighten your loose skin. Unfortunately, I wish it was that easy. You can just inject GH into that skin and it tightens right up. Doesn't work that way. Sorry. Now,
question.
There are ways to there are ways to combat loose skin. Adding muscle mass, for instance, you add more muscle around your chest and everything like that, and the skin gets stretched out because the muscle occupies that space. However, there are people that have lost like 200 pounds, 100 pounds. That skin has been stretched out for years and years and years. And most of the time, the only way to get rid of it would be surgery. And they cut it out to do a little tummy tuck on you. And, but obviously don't go for that until you've lost all the weight. But I see it a lot. Now, if you have a little bit of hanging skin, a lot of times that will tighten up as you get leaner and stay leaner and put a little bit of muscle on. But when you have excessive amount of skin there and it's been stretched out for years and years and years, there's nothing that I know of at this point that will retract that. And anyone who tells you that they have something that will do it is lying to you. There's nothing out there that will fix that skin at this point.
Question about winstrol. Is it better for bulking or better for cutting?
I always love when I get these questions. I always say yes. They're like, what do you mean yes? Works for both. Steroids are steroids. They build and repair muscle. Winstrol usually gets used by convention in men pre-contest because it doesn't hold any water. It's like a very, doesn't aromatize. It kind of just stays as winstrol and does its thing and hardens you up. It doesn't make you really retain much in terms of glycogen. It doesn't raise estrogen, which is why it doesn't make you retain water. So you can use it pre-contest pretty easily. But I know guys that use it off-season because they're just not advanced bodybuilders at this point, and they'll stack winstrol with testosterone. They'll stack winstrol with masteron, and they'll do cycles like that because they're still getting into it, and they can get growth from that with very little side effects. So it works in both directions. But if you're an advanced bodybuilder, you probably want to save winstrol pre-contest.
Question about legumes, the protein digestibility in legumes, and I guess why that's important.
Listen, if you had a chart, if I don't have one accessible right now, but I showed you the biological availability of protein, meaning how easily is our body able to use that protein to build and repair muscle. The number one would probably be whey isolate. Okay. Right beneath that would be like fish, chicken breast, lean red meat. Eggs would probably be a little higher than the ones I just mentioned. So it would probably be like whey and eggs. I think the egg is like almost 100 too of efficiency. So animal sources of protein are very, very high on the efficiency scale of being able to absorb that protein and utilizing it for rebuilding and repairing muscle. When you start getting into the plants, you're using sources of protein that are very devoid and low in branch chain amino acids, specifically leucine, which we know is necessary to turn on the protein machinery in the body. So it's like kind of the switch that flips on the body's ability to build and repair muscle is controlled by leucine predominantly, and that's called the mTOR. And when you turn mTOR on, it's like turning the factory, lights on, so to speak. And all of a sudden the protein machinery, protein synthesis machinery starts working in the body. So you want to eat sources of animals protein if you're trying to maximize muscle gains to keep that switch on constantly and to be feeding in the right amino acids in the right ratios to maximize repair in the body. And I think that's what's really important. Legumes are not very efficient. They're better than like say pea protein maybe or soy, but they're not a great source of muscle building protein, at least. We'll leave it at that.
So this is not really a question, or maybe you can, I guess, interpret it as one, but pretty wild. Hear me out. Man, I had a crazy dream where you were a DEA. You came into my house with a SWAT team and went through my house. All my PEDs got taken. When I went to look where they were and noticed they were gone, you were standing there right there. And I was like, no, I have a prescription for the tests. And you said, well, it was expired. I said, of all people, you understand. What have you done? You said, if you tell anyone on my team, it won't be good. Then you pulled out a big jar in my dresser and showed me where I hid it for me. WTF are you doing in my dreams?
I guess you must be an avid watcher of the Ask Dave television program. Yeah, you know what it is? The people you spend the most time around or you watch the most on videos or TV, whatever, are the people that that's like your inner circle. So even though I'm not there as your friend necessarily holding your hand and going out to eat dinner and shit like that, I think that I'm in your consciousness because of the fact that you probably watch a lot of our programming over here. And I'm like your morality cop in your brain, like telling you this is not good to do, this is good to do. And, we all have anxiety, but listen, as bodybuilders, especially if you're doing, anabolic steroids and you're buying them illegally, which most bodybuilders are, you're going to have a little anxiety and about that. And you're going to have like a little paranoia sometimes about the fact that you might get arrested and stuff like that. So those dreams are pretty typical, I think. And once again, I think the reason I was the person in the dream was because you probably listened to me a lot and you know that I'm the guy giving the advice to you of what to do or not to do. Maybe I've said, don't do something like this and you did it and then you're guilty over it and your subconscious is playing out that scenario in your head. But yeah, no, I've had that happen too with like people like that I watch a lot on TV or something like that, or people I listen to like audio tapes of, or authors I read. That used to happen a lot with Wayne Dyer, because I used to watch a lot of Wayne Dyer seminars, and I would read his books, and I was always like he was like the morality police in my brain every time I would have a dream. One of those dreams you wake up like soaking wet, you're like, oh, thank God it was just a dream, that kind of thing. So that's pretty expected.
I guess back to the real questions. Can you be more descriptive about where the flap of skin on the knee is that you would like to pinch and pin GH or insulin into? I've heard you describe the area, but it's hard to tell where exactly on the knee you recommend pinning.
Yeah, I don't know if I could stand up here and show you. Probably not. Let me see if I can get my knee up high enough to the camera frame. Like right on the outside here, right here. See that loose skin? That loose skin is right on the outside of the knee. It's usually very thin because no one really holds fat down there, and you can just lift that up and put it right under there. To me, that's the easiest place to do it.
Question about L-carnitine. L-carnitine is, unless it's taken in injectable formula, let's say it's taken in liquid form, is it useless? Must it be injected in order to work?
No, I think L-carnitine, there is an absorbability factor. As long as insulin is present, I think that they've shown that L-carnitine is absorbable. And the acetyl L-carnitine form of L-carnitine is much more absorbable than just regular L-carnitine. We use acetyl L-carnitine in lipolyze. It's more fat soluble. And remember, fat soluble enables things to pass through the cell membrane more easily. Thus, it's a little more easy to absorb. Whereas regular L-carnitine really needs that insulin transporter to kind of get into the cells. Here's my belief on L-carnitine. I don't think a lot of people are deficient in it, and it's made inside the muscle. As long as you're eating enough protein, you probably have enough L-carnitine in your system. And I think that people take it because what it does, just for people who don't know, is L-carnitine transports long chain fatty acids from inside the cytoplasm of the muscle cell into the mitochondria, where it gets oxidized and burned for fuel. So that's the job of L-carnitine. Without L-carnitine, these long chain fatty acids can't get into the mitochondria. So the idea is if you put more L-carnitine into the cell, there'll be better transportation of these of long chain fatty acids. The problem is that there's really no deficiency of L-carnitine that we know of, unless you have a metabolic, a genetic disease that is that way. So I think that taking excessive amounts of it is not going to burn more fat. It's just going to restore your L-carnitine levels to optimal amounts. You can't raise it above a certain amount. I think it's the same thing that happened when chromium first. They talked about chromium. No one knew that in order for insulin to work properly, to drive glucose into the muscles, into the cell, well, any cell in the body, you need chromium present as a cofactor. Remember, I told you all the vitamins, minerals, and trace metals are basically accessory or assister molecules in all the chemical reactions in our body. Well, in order for insulin to work, you need chromium present. So they found that people who were chromium deficient, which this was happening in the 80s, and there was chromium deficiency back then, were actually getting fat because they were overproducing insulin. Because if you don't have chromium present as a cofactor, your body's not going to know that. It's going to think there's not enough insulin present. It's going to start over-releasing insulin. If you produce too much insulin in your body, you have a better chance of getting fat, as we know. So by restoring or by providing a supplement of chromium, now the insulin was working correctly. The body stopped releasing excess insulin, and people were losing weight. So they assumed, chromium must burn fat, but it doesn't. If it only will help is if you're in a deficient state. And most people, like nowadays, every multivitamin has chromium in it, chelated chromium. And so we don't really see deficiencies anymore. But, in a deficient state, evidently supplying what's missing is going to help. If carnitine was deficient and you supplied it, you're going to see better fat burning. If it's not deficient and you supply it, it probably won't do anything. So beware.
Well, we just saw Nick Walker on stage this past Arnold Classic, finishing runner-up to Andrew Jack. What do you think of a potential Sergey Danilov versus Nick Walker showdown at Pittsburgh? Mass Monster versus Mass Monster.
I'd love to see it. Who knows what the ceiling is of this guy Danilov? You know, he's put a lot of muscle on this past year. I would never discount. Listen, if I had a bet on anyone, I would bet all my money on Nick Walker because I think he's just a more polished, veteran bodybuilder at this point compared to Danilov. But they both have that freaky, muscular, ripped looking, nasty physique, which will probably match up well on stage. I just think Nick's going to take him out. I think Nick's got a better physique, but we haven't seen Danilov's new version of himself. He did well last year, so it'll definitely be exciting. I hope he does show up in Pittsburgh, and I hope we get to see that battle. Is Nick confirmed for Pittsburgh?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if he is. I mean, the only thing that is confirmed that he's not competing in Detroit, which is this upcoming weekend. Somebody asked him that in his Instagram story, and he shut that down. But I mean, keep in mind, we are 7 and 8 weeks away, if I'm not mistaken, in New York.
But why wouldn't he do UK, Arnold?
He's not. Yeah, he's not doing the UK. Yeah, he doesn't.
I guess Andrew's there, and it would be a nice rematch. I'm sure the Arnold people would love that. I don't think Nick wants to fly. That's what I think.
I think he's adverse to long travel. I mean, I don't have anything to prove that, but I just historically he doesn't travel much. So
he knows his body. So hey, let him.
So anyway, that it seems. I mean, again, we'll wait on confirmation, but it does seem likely that we'll see him in New York, which is going to be the first of the two. Whereas last year Pittsburgh was the first of the two.
Yeah. By the way, I booked my trip for New York, so I'm going.
Oh, sweet. All right, good. So you and I will be there in New York together, right? And then we're working on getting somebody to represent us in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, because I have my kids the next weekend. So.
All right, very good. I'll take a few more questions. How many people approach you at the Arnold and thank you for fiberlyze to keep them regular?
I had a lot of strangers coming up to me and just saying, like, they know I'm the fiberlyze guy. They're like, you changed my life, or I love your fiberlyze. And, because I never know what people are going to ask me, because I always run into people, and a lot of people come up and take pictures and stuff like that. And everyone is very complimentary. A lot of people watch the shows, and some people are after hours fans. Some people are heavy muscle radio fans. Some people are Ask Dave fans. So I always get, people ask me random things, but I did get a lot of fiberlyze compliments, and which made me feel good. And it also made me believe that a lot more people are taking it now that never knew about it because of, people like Nick Walker who mentioned it. And we're always talking about it, and, Lee Priest, and, there's a lot of like high people. Fuad talks about it. There's a lot of people in high places now that are using it and talking about how much they love it. And that really, helps obviously the product, and it helps get it out there. And it really saves a lot of bodybuilders. I can't tell you how many bodybuilders the night of the show, because the night before the show or the morning of the show can't poop. Once they're on fiberlyze, it's like, boom, it's like they're like a clock. And it really it's a very stressful thing to not be able to go to the bathroom prior to competing, because you feel like you got stuff in your stomach and you're backed up and your stomach's not going to be flat on stage. So, in addition to all the health benefits of taking a regular fiber supplement, I think a lot of the competitors really appreciate the fact that it keeps them regular. So thanks for all the support, guys.
Take a couple more questions. The best fat burning compound in your professional opinion?
I've said this before. I don't think anything rivals clenbuterol in terms of the speed with which it works and how effective it is at burning fat. I just haven't seen anything. I mean, you could arguably say the DNP might be better, but you can die from that. So that I don't even put that on the list because it's too dangerous and I don't recommend it. And once again, the effective dose and the lethal dose are just too close for comfort. So I don't include that. But on the list of things that you potentially should consider using, clenbuterol gives you the most bang for your buck. And it's great for women too, because it has no side effects in terms of it's not a steroid. So it doesn't have any androgenizing, negative effects. It's just pure fat burning, so I really think that and that combined with T3 is a tremendous stack.
We'll take one more. And, look, obviously one of the biggest stories to come out of this Arnold Classic, and not a good story, I guess, is everything that took place with Martin Fitzwater. Now, we made it a point, Dave and I, that we did not want to double down on all the developments and the narratives that were out there. We just felt like, what Martin was going through, what he is going through, for us to now just continue to pile on whatever else is being reported, it was essentially tantamount to kicking a man when he's down. So we just figured, look, let this play out. If there's any positive angles, let's play that up. So that's exactly what we did. But the question is, and it is a good one, if you were advising Martin Fitzwater right now, you were his PR agent or just his friend, confidant, or what have you, what would you advise Martin during these days?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think he's been villainized for no reason. He's done nothing worse than a lot of other people have done in the past. So I don't know why people are breaking his balls so much, but I think they know they can push his buttons and get a reaction out of him, and that's the problem. I actually spoke to him today, and he's doing fine. And like I suspected, this guy's made a lot of money over the last 2 years. He saved his money. He's got businesses. He doesn't need bodybuilding. He doesn't need all these sponsors. Matter of fact, I told him, I said, I think the fact that you kind of wiped the slate clean, meaning that he's not beholden to anyone. He doesn't have to answer to sponsors anymore because he doesn't have any more. He doesn't have to answer to anyone. He's his own man. He can do what he wants. He doesn't have to, he's going to stay off social media because it's just not good for him, because he winds up getting into arguments with people and there's no reason for that. He needs peace in his life. He's going to focus on bodybuilding and he's going to get big and put size on and make improvements as he does every year. And when he decides to compete again, his name will pop up on a list and people will see that. And that's going to have to be good enough for everyone out there. And it's going to take the stress off him. And he can just, be a normal human being and train. He's not giving up bodybuilding. The guy's one of the top guys in the world. He could potentially win the Olympia one day. So he just has to, I think he has to stay out of the petty arguments and stuff like that happens online, because it's, for a lot of people, it's very hard to block out the noise. And what happens is you go from being a fan favorite for voicing your opinion, and then you say something a little too harsh, and all of a sudden they want to cancel you and throw you out the door and say, this guy's a terrible guy all of a sudden. So I understand that. And you know what? Some people just don't have the I don't give a shit. Like, I'm like Lee Priest. I'm like, who fucking cares what you think of me? I don't care. But a lot of people get their buttons pushed and they don't like it and they react. And if you're that kind of person, you're better off just staying off social media. The best thing he should do is, and he can decide whatever he wants, is he should post updates on social media. He just shouldn't read the comments. That's all. Post it and that's it. Don't look at it, but for him right now, he's off social media. He's not going to worry about it. He's going to focus on his businesses and putting on muscle so that he can decide what show he wants to do next and come back better than he was. And I think that's a great decision for him. And I think people should just leave this guy alone. He hasn't done anything wrong. He hasn't broken any laws. He's just a passionate guy who loves bodybuilding, and he wasn't happy with the way he looked. He didn't blame anyone. He blamed himself. So leave the guy alone. I don't know what people are breaking this guy's balls for. It's really all right. So we got a little emotional backstage, and he pushed Nick. Big deal. Nick's if he would have pushed Nick with any significance, Nick would have hit him back, would have clocked him, I'm sure. And that didn't happen. So I'm sure it's like when someone's trying to get you in trouble. They're like, he pushed me, come on, just stop this. It's the same thing when he was making fun of Giles and he threw the phone, he pushed his phone down. It wasn't like he punched you in the face, Giles. Stop villainizing this poor guy. Leave him alone.
And that's going to do for this episode of Ask Dave. Again, if you haven't already done so, subscribe, hit the notification bell. We have a whole chock full of content from this past weekend and the week before, leading into the Arnold, and of course, everything this past weekend at the Arnold Classic right now on the RXMuscle YouTube channel. For Dave Palumbo, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.